Hey, this is Brenda Stone. I wanted to share a tutorial that I put together with Jake last year about completing certificates. We'll go over a certificate of acknowledgement, one of the very most common. We'll cover both the long and short form, and we'll look at a jurat and how to complete it. We'll get started with the certificate of acknowledgement, the long form. Okay, what I've done is matched every number of item that you're going to need to fill in with the information that goes into it in these blanks. So I will scroll, make this bigger for you. Okay, in the first thing that goes into a notarial certificate is the venue. The venue is where you are when you're completing the certificate. In this case, we're going to say state of Texas, county of, and I'm in Brazos County. So where number 1 is, that is where you would put the name of the county where you're notarizing the document. Okay, so the next thing is before me, blank, and this is a real stumbler for many notaries. That's where your name goes in. Number 2 goes in there. Number 2 is where your name goes in, and write it exactly as is on your certificate. Number 3 in this formal certificate is a place to put your title. Now, I believe that there are government officials. I should know this certainly, but for instance, a judge, maybe a clerk that works for judges at the courthouse. I know that they can complete these. And so they could, rather than put in notary public, it's not redundant. It is that they're making a place in case it's a clerk, the county clerk at the courthouse, filling out this certificate. And I know there's others, but anyway, that's what that next blank, number 3, is for. Now, number 4 is for the name of the person or persons who are appearing before you. Okay, that's all pretty easy so far, but number 5 is where notaries get kind of hung up on this certificate, because you have on this day personally appeared Nancy Smith, known to me. Okay, known to me. So that would be personal knowledge. If that is the case, what I would do in that situation is, if I knew this person personally, I would neatly line out or prove to me all the way through to number 6. I would line out that complete area, and then I would initial it. Okay, so make a note of that. All right, so in this case, let's say that we're using a driver's license. So known to me on the oath of, that's not something you need there. Okay. Known to me or through, and actually I just go ahead and strike from where or is all the way back to known to me. So I start there at that parentheses, and I do all, see if I can highlight it. Nope, I can't. I would do from the parentheses begins all the way through OR on that 3rd line. So then it would read, and when I say I would do, I mean strike it out and initial. So what it would say then is personally appeared Nancy Smith, known to me through, and in blank number 6, I would put government issued ID or Texas driver's license or US passport. And really, my crazy want to always have the exact same English, I would probably say through presentation of current government issued ID, but that's just me. I don't think there's a big distinction on whether or not you're going to use all the words that I do, but to me, that's just the way it makes sense, or through presentation of current government issued ID to be the person whose name is subscribed to the foregoing instrument and acknowledged to me. I know lots of words that he or she, and that I believe it's just he on the Secretary of State's website where I got this form, executed the same for the purposes and considerations therein expressed. Okay, so given under my hand and seal of office on, that's where you're going to put the date. I like to write it, and I think people appreciate, just go ahead and write out June 30th, 2021. Just write it out. And you can certainly print it, and it's preferable to print if you don't have very neat handwriting. Okay, number 8 is where your notarial certificate, your notarial signature goes, and you're going to want to do that exactly like you signed your notary commission. And then, of course, by number 9 there, you would stamp that area near your signature. Now let's go back up there to known to me, where we talked about ID. On this day, personally appeared Nancy Smith, known to me or proved to me on the oath of. Okay, where number 5 would be where your credible witness's name would go. And you see that it says you took an oath. It proved to me on oath of. You need to give an oath. Hello, Mr. Jones. You have provided ample identity credentials. I know now that you're Mr. John Jones, and I want to ask you under oath, do you swear or affirm that you know Nancy Smith to be the person who she says she is, and that she is in fact the person who should be signing the documents today? And that person would need to say yes, and he would need to do it solemnly. And you would record that in your journal that Jim Jones was verified to you to be Jim Jones, or John Jones, John Jones, and anything else you wanted to note there about him. And I would ask him to sign my journal. Of course, that doesn't have to be done. We can't force anyone to sign our journal, but I always ask. But do go through that formal oath process with the person who's swearing under penalty of perjury that this woman is the right person. And I just threw that phrase in, penalty of perjury. So let me reflect on that for just a moment. As you see, we're not given any guidelines on how to go through that oath here. So it is an oath that needs to be given seriously. And by the fact that it is an oath, they are under that, they should not perjure themselves. In other words, lie under oath. Now, the third thing I want to mention about credible witnesses is, for many years, we never thought much about credible witnesses because our laws say that that person must be known to the notary and known to the signer and must introduce the signer to the notary. Well, now in our admin code, in chapter 87 of our admin code, it's clarified to us that we may use a credible witness to identify a signing party if they can be thoroughly identified, clearly, there's no doubt, if that credible witness can be identified by the use of credentials. So go check that out if you have any questions about what I've said here. Okay, I believe that's enough on the form of ordinary certificate of acknowledgement, the long form. And when you get this handout, you will see that it has the name, the number of the statute that provides this form. So let's go to the next one. It's going to be our short form, and thank goodness, huh? All right, so state of Texas, county of, I'm going to put in Brazos where number 1 is. And the reason I made this distinction of pointing over to Texas is because you may be handling a transaction where the property is going to be located in another state. What you're going to need to do is line through the state if it does not match the state that you are in, which has to be Texas if you're a Texas notary. Line through that, and then excuse me, put Texas and then initial that. And if you have to do that for the county, I would put a small initial under that too, but hopefully the county will just be blank. Anyway, so you're going to need state of Texas, county of Brazos, if that's where you are and you're me. This is so much easier, but old school lawyers like the one we just talked about, some prefer this one. This instrument was acknowledged before me on, that's going to be where your date goes. And if you can, please write it out, June 30th, 2021 by, and that's where your signer's name is going to go in number 3. And if you look, you'll see that all of those numbers coordinate to that list and the numbered item in the list. And of course, notary public, that's where your signature goes. I don't know why this one has, commission expiry date, but I always do put that in no matter, even though it is on our seal now. It wasn't always, and I assume that's why we're still writing it. And then 7 is where you would stamp. So now that we finished both acknowledgements, the way that I present the oral ceremony, and let me back up and say, they can bring a document to you that has been signed. If they have already signed it, that's okay. They can show up in front of you and say, I need this notarized. Well, if it's a jurat, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, you're going to say, well, I need to see you sign it. Well, it's in the case of an acknowledgement, whether short form or long form, you're not witnessing them sign their signature. What you're going to do is take an acknowledgement. So when I take an acknowledgement, I'll say, are you Nancy Smith? Yes. And you're familiar with this document? Yes. Do you acknowledge that this is, that you intend to perform with that you will perform with genuine purpose and intent, and that it's your intention? I try to, and I have a formal way I say it, but I don't swear them in because this is not a sworn thing. But I asked them to tell me that they are signing the document. Are you signing this document of your own free will? Yes. And do you intend to carry out whatever stated within? And if you'll remember back, and I know I stumble around a lot because that's just the way I talk. I'm not a good teacher. I can write, but I'm not great at speaking on. Okay. So here on foregoing instrument, and acknowledge to me that he executed the same for the purposes and considerations stated therein. And that's what they're doing. They're not swearing to anything. They are stating that they intend to perform or whatever that they've stated previously. So anyway, that's how you do an acknowledgement ceremony. It is not a swearing in, and it's a totally different situation. So that's why I never endorse that we just swear in our people at the beginning of an appointment. Okay, finally, we're going to talk about how to complete a jurat. Again, we are going to complete what's called the venue, the state of Texas, county of Brazos. And I want to point out that word subscribed. Well, that's a fancy way of saying signed. So sworn to, they took an oath, and subscribed. They signed, they took an oath and signed before me. And before me is that notary, the notary who's completing the certificate on, and you put in the date, by, and the name of the signer. So, in an acknowledgement, you do not have to have the document signed in your presence. But with a jurat, you do, because that's the story you're telling. If you'll go back and look at the acknowledgement certificate, this instrument was acknowledged before me on this date. So you're asking them to acknowledge their signature, that they signed it of their own free will and they intended, and they were signing with genuine intent and purpose. There's my phrase. I just got stage fright. So unlike that, with sworn to and subscribed, you've got to give an oath. And so that's pretty easy. Do you swear or affirm that the statements in this document are accurate? Some people go into the penalty of perjury. I don't. I say, do you swear or affirm that the document that you have signed is truthful? You know, that's the point. And it doesn't say affirm, because that's not in our standard notary language, but in Texas law, and one of the definitions of the many laws that we have, sworn and affirm mean the same thing. So I use it, sworn, swear, or affirm. And the difference is, swear is like when you, and they really aren't exactly the same, but a lot of people, because of religious beliefs, will not swear an oath. So our government has come up with the idea that they can affirm their statements rather than swearing to them. So one other thing, I think the rest is self-explanatory, or yeah. And the other thing that I do want to tell you, though, is that you're going to get real estate documents that will have at the top of the, when I say real estate, I mean loan transaction documents. And at the top, you're going to have the title of the document, and then right underneath it, it's going to say state of Texas, county of blah, blah, blah. And then it's going to begin, on this day personally appeared Nancy Smith, affiant herein, who, when deposed upon her oath, did state the following. And that's called the preamble. Okay, so technically it is you know, that is your notary venue. But you know, it really throws some people into a tailspin if you put that up there, because it's going to be, many times it will be recorded, and it needs to have and so that the clerks are looking for the venue, where it's going to be recorded. So what I do, what many legal folks do, in my experience, is rather than ruffle any feathers by changing all that, you put down there on your, just above your jurat, that it's state of Texas, county of. And if you'll look at your jurats, your jurat sample provided by the Secretary of State, you'll see that there is a jurat. I mean, the jurat does have the state of Texas, county of. And so that's how I do my jurats. And I stick with just that bottom part of my notary certificate. I'm not telling you that's how to do it. I'm just saying that's how I do it. And I believe that concludes this short tutorial. I hope it was short enough for you on how to complete notary certificates. I hope y'all are having a better day than I am, but I just wanted to jump in there and record this for you, because I know there's lots of confusion on how to complete a certificate. Okay, I'm gonna say one more thing. When you have a certificate that comes from another state, and it may have some other words, you know, if you can change the wording and initial so that you're going to get the same meaning, because it doesn't have to be identical to the words. It just needs to mean the same thing. So for instance, you would not, if they had something in there like sworn, testified, and subscribed before me. Well, we don't have anything about testified in here. I mean, in our Texas notary certificate. So I personally would probably strike that out and initial that word testified. So it's really important, folks, that y'all know what your certificate should say, what duties you can fulfill, and all those kinds of things. And I'm hopeful with these little tutorials that we are going to be able to build a little bit stronger knowledge on how to perform our duties. Anyway, have a great rest of your day, week, wherever this meets you. Take care.